The concept of the self and its relationship to enlightenment is a topic that has fascinated philosophers, spiritual seekers, and scholars throughout the ages. It delves into the profound exploration of our true nature, the nature of reality, and the path to inner peace and self-realization. In this script, we will explore the idea that the existence of the self is intricately linked to the perception of being unenlightened, and we will examine whether an enlightened person engages in discussions on consciousness or requires the presence of the self. To embark on this philosophical journey, we must first acknowledge the illusory nature of the self. The concept of I is something deeply ingrained in our consciousness from a very young age. We identify with our bodies, our thoughts, and our emotions, and we perceive ourselves as individual entities separate from the external world. However, as we delve into the profound exploration of the self, we begin to question the nature of this I. Imagine for a moment the self as a cutout figure in a child's pop-up book. The child pastes this figure onto a page filled with various other cutout objects: the sun, the moon, trees, and people. These objects become the focus of the child's attention, much like how we often focus on the external aspects of our lives. But what if we were to remove the paper, the very foundation of these objects? Without the paper, the cut-out figures lose their context and significance. Similarly, when we delve deep into the nature of the self, we begin to question its existence and its underlying cause. The path to enlightenment, in many philosophical and spiritual traditions, involves a journey towards inner silence. It is a state where the incessant chatter of the mind is stilled, and one transcends the limitations of the egoic self. In this state of silence, one can begin to explore the true nature of the self. The idea is to tranquilize the mind, achieve mental stillness, and discover the boundless space that lies beyond the illusion of the self. It is in this space that reality transcends linguistic expression, and we come to understand that the self is not a tangible, separate entity, but rather a construct of the mind. One of the key realizations on the path to enlightenment is that silence is often more favorable than speech. As long as we cling to concepts, words, and preconceived notions about the self, we hinder our progress towards self-realization. The mind, with its constant stream of thoughts and the reinforcement of the ego, can obscure our understanding of the true nature of the self. In the absence of the mind's incessant activity, everything converges into the self. At this point, one can affirm that everything is the self, and the boundaries between self and other begin to dissolve. However, until this realization dawns, the optimal course of action is to minimize one's speech and engage in inner exploration. The most profound undertaking in the quest for self-realization is to plunge deep into one's innermost self and uncover one's true nature. This exploration can be embarked upon at any given moment, even amidst the hustle and bustle of daily life. Take a moment to inquire within. Who's the one entangled in the world? Be honest and answer, I am. Delve deeper and ask, where did this I come from? What is the nature of this I? How did it originate? What is its underlying cause? Follow the trail of the I and abide in its presence. As you do this, you will gradually realize that the I does not truly exist. You will eventually arrive at the understanding that you are boundless space. As we continue to explore the illusion of the self, we find that the self is not a concrete entity, but a projection of the mind. Just as the objects in the child's pop-up book depend on the paper for their existence, our perception of self is interwoven with the constructs of our minds. The true, unchanging reality is akin to the unchanging screen upon which the objects of our perception are projected. The profound shift in perception that occurs on the path to enlightenment is the recognition that we are not merely human beings identified solely with our bodies and minds. We begin to see ourselves as embodiments of love and the true nature of reality, Sat Chit Ananda, the supreme reality. At this point, one might ask, what practical value does this teaching hold? How can it benefit me in my daily life? The answer lies in the pursuit of true happiness and inner peace. For many of us, happiness is often contingent on external circumstances aligning with our desires. However, the fleeting nature of external circumstances makes it difficult to sustain lasting happiness. When circumstances change, our happiness dissipates. The same principle applies to peace and joy. If they are dependent on external factors, they are subject to change. The teaching on the illusion of the self and the path to enlightenment does not seek to enhance our human experience in the conventional sense. It is not about material gains or superficial improvements in our lives. Instead, it aims for the complete annihilation of our human identity. It is the identification with the egoic self that gives rise to misunderstanding and suffering. As long as we cling to the identification with the body and mind, suffering is inevitable. To eliminate suffering, we must address the root cause, which is the mistaken belief that we are merely human beings identified solely with our bodies and minds. By questioning to whom the experiences of life belong and recognizing the distinction between the ego and our authentic self, we can begin to break free from the cycle of suffering. The cycle of birth and death, much like the continuous cycle of day and night, can become tiresome. At some point, the realization dawns that this game of constant reincarnation is an endless cycle that serves no ultimate purpose. You begin to question who the game player truly is, who undergoes these cycles of rebirth. And in this questioning, a profound transformation begins. The inquiry leads you to question the very nature of your existence, to ask where you truly came from, and whether you had a source of creation. As you continue this introspective journey, you come to realize that the I thought is much like an optical illusion. It presents itself as an entity with tangible existence, but in actuality, lacks substantial essence. This realization unfolds a profound shift in perception. You come to understand that you were never born, and if birth never occurred, the concept of death becomes inconceivable. You grasp the sensation of immortality, a knowingness beyond doubt that transcends the limitations of the individual self. As you delve deeper into self-inquiry and transcend the egoic self, a new perception dawns, that of omnipresence. You realize that you are not bound by any specific physical vessel or form. You exist in a state of eternal liberation, beyond the constraints of individuality. You become a mirror reflecting the vastness of the universe, while simultaneously understanding that you are the mirror itself, not merely its projection. This shift in perception allows you to see the interconnectedness of all things, and you begin to acknowledge that the entire universe is nothing but the self, and you are that. The journey of self-inquiry commences each morning as you awaken. Instead of dwelling on mundane desires or concerns, challenge yourself with profound questions about your existence. Ask, what is this body? Who inhabits it? Who am I? By tracing the source of the I thought and observing the ceaseless cascade of thoughts, you begin to distance yourself from the mind's constant chatter. In this state of inner silence, the true nature of the self gradually unfolds. The existence of the self, as perceived in the conventional sense, is a construct of the mind. It is an illusion that keeps us bound to the cycle of suffering and the limitations of individuality. The path to enlightenment involves the profound exploration of the self, the stilling of the mind, and the recognition of our true nature. As we continue on this path, we come to understand that true happiness and peace cannot be found in external circumstances. They are the natural byproducts of self-realization. By questioning the illusion of the self and embarking on the journey of self-inquiry, we can break free from the cycle of suffering and awaken to the profound truth of our existence. The existence of the self as we commonly perceive it is a construct of the mind, and it is not necessary for an enlightened individual. Enlightenment is the realization of our true nature beyond the egoic self. It is a state of inner silence and self-realization where happiness and peace are no longer dependent on external circumstances. The journey towards enlightenment involves a profound exploration of the self, a shift in perception, and the recognition of our boundless nature. This path, marked by self-inquiry and inner silence, leads to the liberation from suffering and the realization of our true self as an integral part of the universe.